My daughter-in-law said it low, like I wouldn't hear. He's just an expense. I acted like I didn't. 2 days later, the card she used for her shopping was declined. The house she bragged about sold. She kept calling, panicking, but I never picked up. She'd already said enough. But before we continue with beautiful people out there, do subscribe to our channel. Trust me, you won't regret it. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Lily had just come home from her school's Halloween dress rehearsal. She was still wearing glitter on her cheeks when she came skipping into the guest house, her little backpack bouncing behind her. "Grandpa," she said, "Mama said you can't eat too much candy anymore, but I brought you one." I laughed and reached out. It was a fun-sized chocolate, slightly melted from her hand. I took it gently and smiled. "One can't hurt," I said, giving her a wink. "But don't tell your mama." She giggled and ran off before I could say more, her tiny footsteps vanishing down the brick path between the guest house and the main house. Later that evening, I went into the house to help set the table like I did most nights. It was the one time I felt connected again. Anna was in the kitchen, plating roasted chicken while Kevin leaned on the counter scrolling through his phone. I reached for the stack of plates, but Anna stopped me mid-motion. "You don't have to do that," she said without turning around. "Just sit, it's fine." Her voice wasn't harsh, but it had that edge, the kind that says, "You're in the way more than you're helping." So I sat and watched. Dinner was quiet, too quiet for a family of 3+1. Kevin talked briefly about a new client. Anna mentioned the Halloween party they were throwing for friends. I asked about Lily's costume, the one she was so proud of. Anna didn't even look up. "We're buying her something better," she said flatly. "That thing she wore today looked too homemade." I swallowed hard. That thing she was talking about, I'd spent 2 weekends making it with Lily. Glitter wings, tiny crown. She named it Princess Owl and drew it first on a napkin. It was hers, ours, a memory already dismissed. After dinner, Kevin retreated to his office without a word. Anna cleaned up, brisk and businesslike. I slipped away to the guest house quietly. No good nights, no thanks for helping. Just the scraping of chairs, the click of dishes, and the soft slam of the back door. I sat on the edge of my bed, looking at the photo on my nightstand. Me, my late wife, and baby Kevin, smiling on a sunny porch years ago. The house looked so different back then. Warmer, smaller, real. The next morning, while watering the ferns near the guest house, I overheard them. Their kitchen window was open. They weren't whispering. "He's just always there," Anna said. Her voice was casual, like she was talking about clutter. "I know he's recovering, but it's been 6 months. It's starting to feel like dead space, like an extra expense." I froze. The water can tilted in my hand, still running. Kevin said something low, muffled, but not a defense, not a correction. Just a murmur of agreement. "He pays for some groceries," Anna continued, "but not rent. And the heater in that guest house runs all day. Did you see the utility bill? And Lily listens to him more than she listens to us. I'm sorry, but it's too much." I stepped away slowly, shoes crunching lightly on the gravel. I returned to my room and sat on the edge of the bed again, not angry, just embarrassed, like I had overstayed a welcome I never realized was temporary. Dead space, extra expense. I thought of the last 6 months, how I made sure to stay out of the way, cooked for myself, paid my own medical bills, contributed to groceries, and quietly covered the credit card Kevin once maxed out. When Lily was sick and both of them had work emergencies, I stayed up all night with her. She fell asleep in my lap. I held her tiny hand and read her bedtime stories the way I used to with Kevin. No one asked me to, I just did it, because I loved them. Because I thought that meant something. That night I didn't come for dinner. No one knocked to check. The next morning, I let Lily leave without helping her with her shoes. She seemed confused. She stood at the doorway for a second, glancing back, but I stayed seated and gave her a small smile. I didn't want her to feel the weight. I just didn't have the energy to pretend. I didn't say anything to Kevin or Anna, but I started noticing more. The way Anna walked past me with her eyes on her phone, never lifting her head. The way Kevin avoided asking how my therapy sessions were going. The fridge started to look emptier, though I still paid for the groceries. I once found my own pain medication moved to a different drawer for safety, Anna had said. Even Lily seemed quieter, like she had picked up on something in the air. On Sunday, I stayed inside all day. I skipped brunch, didn't go out to tend the roses. I just sat with old photo albums spread out across my bed. Me and Kevin at his graduation. My wife holding Lily when she was just 2 days old. Holidays in the same house they now called theirs. I realized I'd let myself disappear in this home. I made it too easy for them to forget I had a life before I moved into their margins. They weren't mean, not directly. They didn't scream or throw things. That's what made it worse. They were polite enough to avoid guilt, but distant enough to freeze me out, like a slow erasure, like I was becoming invisible on purpose. That evening, I stepped outside. The lights in the main house were already off. Halloween decorations were going up. Paper ghosts in the window, orange lights over the porch. Kevin had promised me we'd decorate together with Lily. He didn't mention it, neither did she. I looked out across the yard, silent. The wind moved gently through the trees, and for the first time in a long while, I said something out loud, but only to myself. They don't know who they're pushing out. Not yet. But they will. And when they do, it'll be too late. The next morning, I heard Kevin before I saw him. He was standing in the backyard, talking on the phone with someone from the office. I can't cover that vendor, he said, sounding frustrated. Just ask if they'll push payment 2 weeks. He paused. No, I don't want to bring Dad into it. It's complicated. That last word echoed longer than it should have. I was behind the garden shed, pretending to prune dead leaves from the rose bush. He didn't know I was there. Or maybe he didn't care. Either way, it told me everything. I wasn't just an extra body in their house. I had become an inconvenience they were quietly managing. Later that day, Anna asked if I could skip the Halloween party. It's mostly younger people, she said, not meeting my eyes. College friends, co-workers, we're trying to keep it casual, you know. She poured herself a glass of wine and leaned against the kitchen island like she hadn't just exiled me from my own granddaughter's favorite holiday. Lily will come say hi afterward, she added, like a crumb of kindness would somehow make it better. I didn't respond. I just nodded and returned to the guest house. That's what they wanted, quiet compliance. No scenes, no pushback, no reminders that I had once paid for that very kitchen renovation they now stood in like it was always theirs. That evening, Lily came over with her new costume, a store-bought fairy princess dress with LED wings and glitter shoes. Mama said we had to get this one instead, she mumbled, tugging at the itchy sleeves, but I still like the owl one better. I smiled and brushed her hair behind her ear. You'll be the brightest fairy there, I said. Just be careful not to outshine everyone else. She giggled, but it didn't last long. Kevin called her from the main house and she ran off. No hug. No goodbye, just little shoes tapping away over the bricks. I sat on the porch until nightfall, the guest house lights off. Just the sound of laughter and music spilling out of the big house as guests began to arrive. I saw shadows dancing in the windows, flashing lights, costumes, movement. I watched it all from a distance like a stranger peering into someone else's home. I heard someone yell, "Where's the old guy? I thought your dad lived with you now." Kevin laughed awkwardly. "He's around somewhere," he said. "Probably asleep. He sleeps early." Another voice chimed in, "Man, I hope I'm not crashing at my kid's place when I'm that age." More laughter, more drinks poured. I stayed seated, motionless. The next morning, I checked my bank accounts, not because I was worried, but because I wanted to remind myself. My late wife had been the smarter investor between the two of us. After she passed, I followed her blueprint: low-risk, high-dividend funds, strategic stock in her pharmaceutical firm, real estate in her name until the trust shifted it to me. Kevin didn't know. I'd kept it that way for a reason. He'd made assumptions that because I wore the same old watch and drove a pickup with faded paint, I must have very little left. He didn't know I owned 2 properties downtown. He didn't know I was still listed as silent partner in a logistics company he once tried to work with, but never knew I had helped save from bankruptcy. They never asked, and I never offered. That same afternoon, Anna knocked on the guest house door for the first time in weeks. She wore her best smile, the one she used at PTA meetings and when charming nosy neighbors. Hey, she chirped. Quick question. Do you think you could pick Lily up from school this week, just while I prep for a work event? Kevin's got late meetings and traffic. It's been awful. I looked at her, silent. She squirmed a little. It's just for a few days. I nodded. Of course, I said. She's never a burden. The words hung there. She blinked, gave a tight smile, and left. I didn't look away until the door clicked shut behind her. On Wednesday, I picked Lily up. She looked happy to see me, chatted about how boring math was, how excited she was for trick-or-treating, but her smile faded halfway through the drive. Grandpa, she said quietly, did you hear Mama tell someone you were just visiting? I glanced at her through the rearview mirror. Her face was small, uncertain. She said it like you didn't live with us. But you do, right? I gave her the most reassuring smile I could. I'm always right where you need me to be. She didn't say anything after that. That night I sat with an old notebook, my wife's handwriting still lining the margins, budget notes, rental income projections, trust outlines, all of it. I reviewed everything, slowly, carefully, not because I was plotting, but because I needed to remember I hadn't lost my grip, not all of it, not yet, and not to people like this. On Friday, Anna came storming back into the guest house. This time she wasn't smiling. I tried using the household card, she said. Declined twice. It worked earlier this week. What's going on? I set down my tea and looked at her, calm. You'll need to speak with Kevin, I said. I removed my access a while ago. Her eyes narrowed. You didn't mention that. I wasn't asked, I said. She opened her mouth to say something else but stopped. Her jaw tightened. She turned and left without another word. Later that night, Kevin knocked. Slower, he waited this time. Dad, he said through the door, we should talk. I didn't answer. Eventually, I heard him sigh and walk away. It was starting, slowly, quietly. I hadn't done anything drastic. I hadn't taken anything away from them, but I'd started pulling myself out of their shadow. And in the space I left behind, they were beginning to feel something strange. Loss. And they didn't even know what they'd lost yet. Saturday morning arrived with fake smiles and tension thick enough to taste. I could feel it the second I stepped outside. Kevin was sitting on the back patio, pretending to read a newspaper he hadn't subscribed to in years. Anna was inside, banging cupboards a little louder than usual. They hadn't spoken to me directly since the card incident, but the silence was strategic, calculated. I had become something they didn't know how to control anymore. I took my tea outside and sat in the guest house's small garden. Lily joined me 10 minutes later, still in her pajamas, carrying her sketchbook. She climbed onto the bench beside me and opened to a new page. I'm drawing the house, she said, but not all of it, just the part that's nice. I looked over. She had drawn the guest house, flowers, and our garden bench. The main house was a faint pencil outline, half-formed, almost ignored. I ruffled her hair gently. She didn't say anything else, but I knew she understood more than they thought. Later that afternoon, Anna came out to the backyard with a tray of lemonade for her friends. I overheard pieces of their conversation while pruning the hedges nearby. He's been acting off lately, she said. We're not sure what's going on. Maybe he's confused. You know how it is at that age. One of her friends laughed. You mean like early dementia? Anna didn't deny it. She just sipped her drink and changed the subject. That was the second time she'd tried painting me as unstable. The first had been subtle, telling Lily not to ask me too many questions because I get tired easily. But this one strung. This one was deliberate. Kevin said nothing, just sat there nodding, sipping, silent. I didn't respond, not with words, but that night I made a call. The number hadn't changed in years. Hi Marty, I said. Yeah, it's been a while. Listen, remember that thing we talked about, the trust? Yeah, I think it's time to make the switch. Yep, full transfer, let's meet Monday. I hung up, looked around the guest house, and took inventory, not of furniture or things, but of memories. This wasn't where I planned to grow old. It was just where I landed after the surgery, after my wife passed, after Kevin said, just stay with us a while, Dad. You'll be comfortable here. I had believed him. I wanted to believe that family meant something more than convenience. But comfort had come at the cost of respect. On Sunday, Anna cornered me while Kevin was out. "Listen," she said, arms crossed in the doorway. "I feel like there's been some misunderstanding. I never said you were a burden. If you thought that then, well, I can't control how things are interpreted." It was the most carefully constructed non-apology I'd ever heard. "I just think maybe you've been a bit sensitive lately," she added, twisting the knife. "And that's okay. We all go through things." I stared at her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Thank you for clarifying," I said calmly. She seemed satisfied with that, but she had no idea what I was clarifying in my head. Later that day, Kevin came to me with a suggestion. "Hey Dad," he started, not making eye contact. "So Anna's cousin has a room to rent, and we were thinking maybe it's time you had your own place, just until things settle down here. You know, space for everyone." And there it was, the polite exhale. I smiled. "That's thoughtful of you," I said. "Would I still get to see Lily?" "Of course," he said too quickly. "She could visit. We'd figure it out. It's just, we're trying to restructure some things financially, and well, we thought this might help everyone." I nodded. "Let me think on it." That night I didn't sleep. I reviewed every trust document, every insurance policy, every property title. Kevin didn't know it, but his name wasn't on anything yet. Not the house, not the accounts, not the investment properties. He thought everything had already transferred after Mom passed, but I had always held back just in case. She warned me once gently that Kevin sometimes had ambition without structure. I didn't understand what she meant then. I did now. Monday morning, I met Marty at the bank. We restructured the trust. We locked out access. We froze the household account and removed all secondary cardholders. I updated beneficiaries, added protections, moved funds into a living estate. Every signature was a door closing behind me, quiet, final, irreversible. Marty looked up after the last signature. "You sure about all this?" he asked. I nodded. "It's not revenge," I said. "It's insurance." That afternoon, I returned home to find Lily waiting in the garden. "Mama said we might not live here forever," she said, pouting. "I don't want to move." I crouched next to her and whispered, "Sometimes homes move around us, but we get to choose what stays with us." She didn't fully understand, but she smiled anyway. Kids are smarter than we give them credit for. That evening, Kevin and Anna hosted another dinner. I wasn't invited, but I could hear them laughing with guests again. The music thumped, glasses clinked, same as before. Only this time, the house didn't feel like theirs. Not anymore. And soon, they'd find out just how much had changed. The silence after they left was unlike anything I'd known in months. The house, once filled with the low hum of passive-aggressive chatter and forced civility, now breathed on its own. I moved through the kitchen without side-eyes, sat at the dining table without judgment. The TV no longer played whatever Anna preferred as background noise. The fridge had what I wanted, not whatever was on sale. It was strange how quickly peace filled the spaces where resentment used to live. I took my time, rearranged the living room, pulled out old photos of my wife, restored the guest room, formerly Anna's workspace, into a library filled with our shared books. I even hung Lily's owl costume on the back of the door, a reminder, not of what was lost, but what was still worth protecting. The following week, I reached out to the school principal. I asked about Lily quietly, respectfully. "She's doing okay," she said, "but she's withdrawn, talks less, seems like she's holding something in." I thanked her. I didn't press. I didn't want to be the meddling grandfather, but I knew what that meant. Lily felt the fracture. She was too young to name it, but not too young to feel it. I waited a few days, then contacted Marty again. "Set up a third-party education trust," I told him, "separate from the family fund, just for Lily, no parental oversight." He hesitated. "You know that'll spark a fight." "Let them swing at air," I said. "It's not about them anymore." We filed the paperwork, quietly, legally, securely. That Friday, I got a call from Anna. She didn't leave a voicemail. On Saturday, another call, this time from Kevin. followed by a message, "Can we just talk?" I didn't respond. I let the silence speak for me. For the first time in years, they didn't know what I was thinking, and that's what terrified them the most. By Sunday, they were on the porch, together, dressed too neatly, holding coffee cups they clearly didn't buy themselves. "Dad," Kevin began, "we've been thinking maybe we overreacted." Anna chimed in, "We let things get tense. It's been stressful for all of us, but we are family. We should try again." I leaned against the doorframe, watching them. They stood in the same spot where they'd once whispered about me being dead space. Now suddenly they remembered I was alive, valuable, relevant. "You don't need to try again," I said calmly. "You need to move forward." Kevin's face twitched. We want Lily to have all her family around. She misses you." That line nearly broke me. But I didn't let it show. "She knows where I am," I said. "You taught her that silence is normal, but eventually she'll ask questions, and I'll answer them." Anna stepped forward. "So what now? You just erase us?" I shook my head. "I learned from the best." They left without another word. But something had shifted. Late. That evening, I received a call from Lily's teacher. "She drew something today," the teacher said. It was a house split in half, one side dark, the other side full of stars. She said, "This half is quiet, but it feels warm." My throat tightened. "Thank you for telling me," I said. The next day, I sent Lily a letter. No judgment, no pressure. Just a short note, written in cursive she loved to mimic. "You are loved, you are light. This house is always yours, no matter what anyone says." 3 days later, there was a soft knock on the guest house door. It was Lily. Alone. Backpack slung over one shoulder, a small notebook clutched to her chest. I opened the door and she threw her arms around me. No hesitation, no confusion, just quiet trust. "Mama said we're staying at a hotel," she whispered, "but she let me come for dinner." I made her favorite, mac and cheese with real cheese, not powdered. She ate in silence, swinging her legs under the chair, smiling between bites. "You know," she said, "our new place has a pool, but it feels cold, even when the water's warm." I nodded. Sometimes the warmth isn't in the water. She didn't want to leave that night. Anna came to pick her up and stood on the porch like she wasn't sure if she should knock. I didn't make it easier. Eventually, Lily walked out, waving. "Can I come again tomorrow?" she asked. Anna hesitated. I stepped in. "Of course." The next day, she came again. And the day after that. It became a routine. Unofficial, unspoken, sacred. Kevin called me one afternoon. "You're poisoning her against us," he snapped. "She talks about you like we're strangers." I kept my voice even. "Maybe she's just finally allowed to speak freely." He hung up. Another week passed. Then came the envelope. Left at the door in the early mornings. No name, no stamp, just a return address, one of my properties downtown. Inside, a typed letter. Polite. Formal. A request. They wanted to move back into the house. Not to reconcile. Not for family. But for convenience. Anna had lost her job. Kevin's client base had dried up. They framed it as a short-term need. I didn't reply. Instead, I had Marty draft a formal letter. "We regret to inform you that the property is currently under legal restructuring. All tenancy considerations are closed indefinitely." It was true, but it also wasn't the answer they wanted. That night, I walked through the house. Every room quiet. Every surface mine again. Not out of pride, but out of peace. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't slam doors. didn't insult them back. I just remembered who I was. And I reminded them without saying a word. Autumn began to fade. The leaves curled and dropped from the old maple outside the guest house, collecting like memories on the stone path. I watched them each morning with Lily as we drank cocoa on the porch. It became our ritual. She came over after school, stayed until dark, sometimes even falling asleep curled under the blanket on the couch. Anna still picked her up, but always with a kind of reluctant politeness, like she was afraid of saying the wrong thing in front of a judge. One day, Lily brought a school project family tree. She showed me the rough sketch, stick figures, names, tiny hearts. I put you here, she said, pointing at the base of the tree, because you were before everyone else. I smiled. That's very accurate. She looked up at me. Mama said it's just a tree, but I think it's more like roots. You're the reason we're all connected. That single line stayed with me long after she left. Later that night, I got a text from Kevin, just 4 words. We made a mistake. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He knew I'd seen it. The next week, I got a knock at the front door instead of the guest house. It was Kevin again, this time holding a box. Old photos, he said. We found them while packing up storage. Figured you might want them. I let him in, let him set the box down, but didn't invite him to stay. He lingered anyway. Lily talks about you all the time, he said. She wants you at her winter recital. I nodded. I'll be there. Anna's trying, he added. We both are. I gave him nothing. Let the silence hang. Dad, he finally said, I know we messed up. I know it's late, but if there's a way back, I cut him off gently. There's no way back, Kevin, only forward. The question is, what do you take with you? He didn't have an answer. The next few days passed quietly, peacefully. I began renovations on the house, not to erase the past, but to reframe it. I opened the wall between the kitchen and dining room, installed new windows in the den, refinished the floors in the hallway. Every board I sanded felt like closure. Every nail I drove into place was a new boundary being set. Marty called again. They reached out, he said. Anna tried to challenge the education trust. Let her, I replied. It's airtight. He paused. You want me to shut it down, Biff? Or it gets ugly. I shook my head. Let them see how far they're willing to go just to lose. The week of the recital, Lily came by with a gold envelope. It's your invite, she said proudly. You're in the front row. What about your parents? I asked gently. She shrugged. They'll sit somewhere, but I want to see you when I sing. She didn't ask for permission. She gave it. And that told me everything. At the recital, the auditorium buzzed with soft conversation and nervous parents. I sat where she wanted me, center, second row. Anna and Kevin arrived 10 minutes late, scanned the crowd, then quietly took seats in the back. I didn't wave, didn't even look their way. When Lily walked on stage, her eyes went straight to me. Her smile widened, steady and bright. When she sang, I could hear the peace in her voice, the confidence, and I realized something that almost brought tears to my eyes. She hadn't just come back to me. She'd come home to herself. After the recital, I met her backstage. She hugged me tightly, then whispered, I'm glad you came. Anna walked up seconds later, awkwardly adjusting her purse strap. She did really well, didn't she? She did, I said. She found her voice. Anna opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She simply nodded, then walked away. Kevin gave me a nod from a distance. I didn't return it. Some bridges are burned for a reason. That weekend, Lily came for a sleepover, her first real one. We made pancakes, watched old black and white movies. She asked questions about her grandmother, what she was like, how we met, what she laughed at. I told her everything, not just the sweet things, the hard things too, because she deserved truth, not performance. As she drifted off to sleep that night, curled up beside me on the couch, I realized I hadn't just regained a granddaughter. I had become something else entirely. Steady, grounded, free. The following Monday, I had a meeting with my real estate lawyer. We discussed the final piece of the plan, the downtown property, my most valuable one, the one Kevin once tried to buy without knowing I was its silent owner. I handed over paperwork. Listed under Lily's name, I said. Hold it in trust until she's 18. She's still so young, the lawyer said. That's the point, I replied. She won't always be. When the documents were signed, I mailed one clean copy to Kevin's new address. No letter. No note. Just the deed. Just the truth. It arrived on a Thursday. By Friday, I had 3 missed calls and a long text that began with, "You didn't have to do that," and ended with, "I hope someday you forgive us." I read it once, then deleted it. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't something you give to people who asked too late. It's something you give to yourself when you stop needing an apology. And I didn't need anything from them anymore. It was the first snowfall of the season when Lily came running through the gate in her red boots, cheeks pink from the cold, a spark in her eyes I hadn't seen in months. She didn't knock. She never had to. I opened the door before she reached it. "Grandpa," she grinned, holding up a crumpled permission slip. "I got picked for the winter showcase." She handed it to me like a trophy. "I want you there again, but this time I'm playing piano too." I read the form carefully, then signed it at the bottom. "I wouldn't miss it for anything," I said. She stayed that evening helping me decorate the house. We pulled out the old Christmas lights, the ones her grandmother had saved in color-coded bins. She remembered the routines I thought only I cared about. The silver ornaments go in the dining room, the gold in the den. She even found the nativity set and placed each figurine exactly how her grandmother had. "She'd be proud," I said softly. Lily just smiled and nodded. Around midnight, after she had fallen asleep under the tree with cocoa still in her mug, I received a message from a number I didn't recognize. One sentence, "We are being evicted." No name, no explanation, but I didn't need one. The house Kevin and Anna had moved into after leaving mine had been leased, not owned. Their attempt to pivot, reset their lives, had failed. The next morning, Kevin showed up at my door, not angry, not bitter, just tired. "They're kicking us out," he said without ceremony. "We can't make the payments. The bank froze my last account. I know you probably don't want to hear it, but we're out of options." I said nothing, just looked at him. This was the man who once told his wife, "We'll just ride it out. He won't last long." The man who let his daughter believe her grandfather was a burden. The man who sat in silence while his wife insulted the very foundation they stood on. And now he stood at my door, stripped of pride, asking for mercy. "We'll be gone by end of week," he added. "I just wanted to say I get it now." That was his apology, not for what they did, but for what it cost him. But I closed the door without replying. Later that day, Anna called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail this time. "I was wrong," she said. "We thought we were protecting our future, but we forgot who built it. If I could take it back, I would. We didn't know you still had control." That line almost made me laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was finally honest. They hadn't feared hurting me. They feared that I still mattered. But I did. And not because of money. Because I remembered who I was. On Friday, I received a small package in the mail. Inside, a framed photo of Lily and me from the recital. No note, just the image, her smile, my hand on her shoulder, a snapshot of something they couldn't touch anymore. That evening, Lily stayed again. We made soup together, watched the fire crackle in the hearth, and she asked if she could bring a few of her drawings to hang in the guest house. "I want to make it more mine," she said, "even if I don't live here forever." I agreed instantly. The next day, I drove to the downtown property, the one I'd placed in her name. I took photos of the building, the garden space, the view from the balcony. I put them in a small binder, wrapped it in blue ribbon, and left it on her bed before she arrived again Sunday night. When she opened it, her eyes widened. "Is this for me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "It's yours," I said, "someday when you're ready." She didn't know the details, didn't need to. She just hugged me tight and whispered, "Thank you." That night she fell asleep under a blanket embroidered with her name, one her grandmother had made years ago. I sat by the fireplace, watching the snow fall against the window, the flames reflecting memories I didn't want to lose. And for the first time, I didn't feel old. I felt complete. The betrayal had cut deep, but the revenge, it wasn't loud. It didn't come with fireworks. It came with calm, with clarity, with the steady reclaiming of what they tried to steal: dignity, peace, love. They had tried to erase me. But I was still here. Not out of spite. Out of survival. Out of truth. And in that truth, I found something better than victory. I found peace. But there was one final thing I had to do. Not for me. For Lily. And that's how the last step of this journey began. The next week, I invited Lily for one last sleepover before school let out for the holidays. We baked sugar cookies, played board games, and watched old VHS tapes from when Kevin was her age. She giggled at his bowl cut, asked about the snow forts he built, and didn't ask why he didn't come around anymore. Some questions answered themselves. Before bedtime, she gave me something she'd been hiding behind her back, a small card she made herself. On the front, it said, "My favorite place." Inside, there was a drawing of the guest house, me in the rocking chair, her beside me with a book. "It's not big," she wrote, "but it's where I always feel safe." I almost cried. That night, I placed her card in my desk drawer, right next to the will. The next morning, I called Marty and told him it was time. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Absolutely," I said. "They tried to silence me, I stayed quiet. They tried to erase me, I stayed present. But this last act, it's for her." We updated the will. Removed Kevin and Anna entirely. Not out of vengeance. Out of clarity. The assets were divided among charities, community trusts, and educational funds. But the main estate, every property, every bond, every account, went to Lily, in full, upon her 21st birthday. Until then, it would be managed by a neutral financial advisor under my instruction. Safe, untouchable. By Monday, the legal changes were complete. I made one final copy of the revised will, placed it in a red envelope, and stored it in the fireproof box where I kept all the things I wanted her to find someday. Not soon, but someday. 2 days later, I received a call. It was Anna. "Kevin's in the hospital," she said. "Panic attack, stress. I thought you should know." I listened in silence. Then replied, "I hope he gets help." She hesitated. "Lily talks about you all the time. It's like we don't exist anymore." I said nothing. Because sometimes, nothing is the most honest thing you can say. She hung up. On Wednesday, the first check from the newly created scholarship fund went out to a struggling single mother in Ohio. I got a thank you letter a week later. She had 2 sons, one of whom wanted to be a teacher. I wrote back, encouraged them, told them someone out there believed in them, even if they never met. Every dollar I redirected from Kevin and Anna went to someone who wouldn't waste it. People who still knew what gratitude looked like. By Christmas Eve, the house felt warmer than it ever had. I decorated the porch alone, hung a small stocking for Lily, and wrapped a single gift she'd asked for, a set of watercolor paints and an art book. She arrived. In the afternoon, skipping up the steps like she'd never left. "Mama's staying at the motel again," she said casually. "She said we might move to Texas, but I told her I'd miss my favorite place." I didn't ask questions. I just said, "You'll always have a place here." We ate dinner, unwrapped gifts, laughed like it was just us in the world. When she fell asleep that night on the couch, I covered her with a blanket and looked out the window at the snowfall. Quiet, constant, clean. I had no regrets. They had taken me for granted. But they had also taught me what silence could do. Silence wasn't weakness. It was power in its purest form. Years passed. Lily grew older, wiser, stronger. Kevin and Anna faded into the background of our lives. They called sometimes, left polite messages, sent holiday cards. I never replied. Lily saw them occasionally, but the bond had already shifted. One day, when she turned 21, I handed her the red envelope. She read the will in silence, then looked up at me, tears in her eyes. "You gave me everything," she said. "No," I replied. "I gave back what was always yours. They just tried to steal it before you knew it." She hugged me fiercely. And in that moment, I knew the story was finished. Not the kind of finish with slamming doors or screaming matches, but the kind that lingers, that settles in the soul, the kind that makes you lean back and realize some revenge isn't loud. It's simply never letting them take anything from you again. And that's exactly what I did. If you believe quiet revenge is the loudest justice, subscribe, because sometimes the ones they try to erase are the ones who write the final chapter.